Uh, Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Pesoa, and with me I have Anett, and we are international social work students at the Han University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands, and we just finished our internship in the International Federation of Social Workers.
Our contribution to the summit is going to be a little summary of the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and our role as international social work students in these situations.
Very briefly in this presentation, we will be talking about three perspectives. The first one being the volunteering in emergency situations. The second one being about social workers that are in emergency situations. The different phases of the mission and the cultural exchange. And this is more of the student social work side, and this is something that Anett will talk you about, since Anett is Hungarian and she was directly involved in helping refugees. As we all know, it is human the need to help, and especially when we see humanitarian crisis like we are seeing now, everyone wants to help a little bit in the way that they can, and this can be done by volunteering. And volunteering is great. However, there can also be some negative effects that we learn in class, and we would like to talk with you about it. As that negative effects of volunteering is that it doesn't require skills or knowledge, and this is quite self-explanatory, I think. With volunteering, there is not a need to be aware of cultural biases and cultural contexts. So a lot of people that go do volunteer work abroad don't reflect on themselves, on what do I truly feel, what do I think about this culture, and this has very negative effects since they moved there. There's also another negative effect, and we should ask ourselves if it is a sustainable solution for the problem. And this is so we can't do everything for the people. We have to teach them and to listen them and to their needs. In addition, it can also be hurtful on a national workforce, and with this is we are doing free work that can maybe be paid to the national workforce. Duration can also be something very negative, and with this I mean that if you are in a volunteer job for a very short time, this can actually be very bad for example, kids. If they are in a traumatic environment, they grow attachment issues to you, and then it's very difficult for them when you leave. And also volunteering, when it's done uninformedly, can lead to a savior complex, and this is the feeling that because you are helping, you are better. You don't have to listen to the community, when that's actually very untrue, and we should always learn from each other. But there are ways to prevent this, and this is mostly by by reflection. So am I doing, do I have the right knowledge and experience to help? Like, do I know the organization well? Is this the right organization? Is it an ethical organization? Is it also the right work to be done? Am I actually adding something, or am I just taking it away? And this is also something that comes across in the next point. Are there nationals that could be profiting from this job? And like I mentioned before, will I stay long enough? Will my time there actually be beneficial? And of course, we also have to spread awareness, and I hope this is, with this tiny slide, we can spread awareness on irresponsible volunteering and help people to think a bit more about it. Then there are the other perspective, and that is social workers in emergency situations. And there is a quote by the International Federation of Social Workers I really like, and there is that social workers cannot influence the course of a conflict of war, but they can influence the resources that are mobilized for the support of the people affected, and they can ask the government to become active in supporting people affected. Yeah, so social workers, they create long-term support plans to help refugees and asylum seekers to settle and integrate in the new country. They provide direct support to victims and families. They most of the times do partnership with colleagues from other fields of work. So, for example, psychologists, lawyers, and if they have the right qualifications, they can also give some psychological support as well as legal advice.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about the different phases I went through as a social work student when Ukraine was invaded by Russia. Well, I'm Hungarian and Romanian, so I was living in the border countries when I wasn't in the Netherlands to study. So the first phase of the invasion or the war was that people started fleeing, and there were different camps set up near the border, and our first trip was to Zahony, which is one of the Hungarian-Ukrainian borders, where we delivered humanitarian aid and just very important things that needed to be there when women and children were fleeing. There are some pictures also showing what we have seen when we arrived. It was very cold. That was one of the other effects to look out for. At night, we were meeting children and mothers staying at gas stations, and yeah, there was quite a lot of things there. And that was the first phase. When people were just staying at the border, they were still hoping that the situation will get better, they can go home, so they didn't take the steps to permanently make their leave. As you can see, we also seen tanks, which was a very first for me as a social work student, and also just being on the ground and trying to hold back emotions when a lot of things are happening was quite an experience, a learning experience. Then the second phase was going back to the Netherlands right after this, and there is a lot of people who want to help, and just thinking, how do I turn this manpower into resources that can actually help in a resourceful or sustainable way, as Maria said, and in help of a community center here in Nijmegen. We were able to make a fundraiser event where we sold pancakes, and a lot of people came and donated. And that was a really great way to bring people together, and people could feel like they are doing something. Since food, I feel like always a good idea and brings people together. The next phase was going back to the families that are already left the camps, and they already started settling in the country and in the cities. And we took in a family in our home in Romania, and also one in Hungary. So it's no question that the most rewarding and amazing part of these phases is when the donations arrive and you see the smile of the people, and that you made a change, even though that you didn't make a change in the war situation, but for these people you made a big step. So this was one of the best parts. But of course, it's not all about smiles. Right after this phase, there was also moving back to the volunteering phase, where it was more physical involvement. Since Eastern Europe, it's quite cold until the end of May, beginning of June, especially at night. Wood needed to be delivered and made ready to heat the houses where the families were staying. So yeah, this showed me again that social work has a lot of layers, and one of them can be physical involvement as well. And then just already touching the cultural exchange, when meeting the families, overcoming the language barrier was maybe the hardest, since obviously they speak Ukrainian. I spoke Hungarian, Romanian, English, but none of the languages were good to meet. So what are we doing to have a common ground when there are maybe people who have mobility or movement issues, and also children? So do we use Google Translate, or do we just put down the phone and try to find common ground that doesn't need a language to connect? So in conclusion, I felt like the translator was nothing compared to the common ground. For example, pets. They were common ground that just made everyone happy, and they didn't need words or explanation. So also this was the same with food. Food brings people together, just as I said before, and it was a great cultural exchange. Learning about their culture, learning about their religious Easter traditions that they are doing, and also showing how we are doing the same in Hungary and Romania, or different. And this part needed no translation, and it was a clear point where we could connect and put every difference aside and just sit together as one big family, which was really great. So in conclusion, this experience showed me as a student that social work has a lot of layers, and they are all part of a big whole, from administration to social media, from being on the ground with refugees, to writing reports, is all part of social work.
And also, in addition, like it was already mentioned, the need to help is human, but this has to be done responsibly and informedly. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to us, and enjoy the summit.
Bye.
Bye.